Welcome to Three Witches and a Druid podcast, a Canadian podcast about paganism in today's modern society.
Some mad plot to rot your mind. You're so behind. It's so unkind. Your song goes on forever. To two, you're never quite together in your own place, in your own time. You can feel it growing. To two, yeah. If you had the chance, would you do it all again? Would you take this life on new horizons? Or would you stay in the dark world of the two? Your song goes on forever. The two, you're never quite together in your own place, in your own time. You can feel it growing. Too, yeah.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Three Witches and a Druid, where we sit around, this time enjoying some sipping tequila, which none of us ever heard there was such a thing before.
I knew there was sipping tequila.
Yeah.
I'm cultured. As we drink our sipping tequila from Kirkland.
Which is lovely. And we talk about our lives and experiences and opinions and thoughts of being pagans in this modern world. I'm Margot.
And I am Maeve. Gwen.
And I'm Brian. So something Krista pointed out the other day that we should really emphasize. This is a super low budget production. This is just 4 people literally sitting in a living room around the coffee table. We have a little recording device with 4 microphones. I think 2 of them I stole from somebody. And this is it. There is no high-end sound studio production. This is what you get. If you don't like it, too bad. Well, no, we're working on it.
And our sound editor does an amazing job making us.
We can't express to you how terrible we sound until she gets a hold of it. It's
marvelous.
Bad.
She's marvelous.
Yeah.
We're very grateful to her.
We are very grateful for Krista. Thank you very much. So, tonight's episode, we're going to talk about starting a coven, or a grove, or a circle, or a spiritual gathering of like-minded individuals. What are some other words you had there?
I was going to say temples, magical families, and I really like the optimism in the like-minded individuals because
that's very rare.
Always been my experience.
I don't think that has ever happened, ever. If you want to work with a group, how do you find it, or how do you make it? Dun, dun, dun.
I could wax poetic on that for approximately 3 days straight.
Do it, because most of our episodes have been short lately, so a 3-day episode is good. Go.
Well, there's many ways, I suppose, to go about it. I have belonged to more than one coven this time. I started out in a traditional BTW coven and moved on from there. And then, sometimes covens, people move away, this and that, things fall. I almost don't know where to start. But if you are looking for a group, I'll say this right out. That can be difficult. Sometimes there's not a lot of groups in your area, or covens are very closed. You know what I mean? They sort of have to find you. So what I would like to start off with is start your own and don't think you can't do it. Absolutely start your own. I remember you were barely out of being a teenager and we were in PEI, Brian, there once, and you were talking about it, and I said, just do whatever you want.
And we did.
And you did. I remember that. I barely knew you. Might have been the first time I ever met you. You were very young. But start your own. If you've got a couple of friends, if it starts with 3 people or just 2 people working together.
That's a circle.
That's a circle.
Yeah.
And do not think I can't do it. I'm too afraid. What if I do it wrong? Get your basics down. Start from there. Work your way up. Whatever you want to do. But do not be afraid to do it yourself. Now, finding a group and finding a teacher, I know a lot of people are very much looking for teachers. Not that books can't give you a lot of things, but it is nice to, talk to someone and whatnot. I'm going to start with this because I could go on for 3 days, like I said, but don't be afraid to start your own.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would also suggest, the second most and possibly the most important thing, even if it's 3 people, set up a bit of a rule book. This is how we handle this. This is how we handle that. You know what I mean? Or if there's disagreements that come up, how do we handle this? What is the protocol for this? And I know it sounds like a lot, sounds very fussy. And if you all agree and everyone puts their input in, if something comes up, you can then go, you know what? We agreed to this.
Yeah. Rules are not a bad thing when it comes to a group of people.
And
rules exist for a reason.
And not that rules can't be changed.
Exactly.
You can amend the rules, change the rules. Times change, numbers change.
Yep.
But I think that even if you just set up a little working group who are like, okay, we're actually making it a conscious effort. We're going to meet every week, not every week, every month or every 2 weeks, whatever you're doing. And we're going to give ourselves a little name and whatnot. I think setting up the rules, that's my Virgo moon talking for you right there.
Yeah.
I think that's trauma responses. Really? I was going to say, I think if nothing else, learn from our experiences.
Yes, because and do not mistake me. There are traditional covens with, a high priest and priestess in charge of everything, and that can be marvelous. But it can also be whiplash when their moods change from one month to the next on how things should be handled or their whims. The opposite can be true. If you have your formal rules set up, then it can work out really well.
Yeah.
But you guys start talking now because I could go on for ages.
My thoughts on this one is, again, something I would get frequently at Little Mysteries was, a coven needs to be 13 people. I can't find 13 people, so I can't have a coven. That's nonsense. Complete nonsense for so many reasons. If you feel the calling to start a circle and start a coven, or be in a circle and need to create it yourself and actively search for people that you can connect with, don't limit yourself from doing it because you can't find 13 people. These are people you are going to share your most vulnerable moments with. You need to be able to trust them. There needs to be a connection, a heart connection, a soul connection, an intellectual connection, and a trust. And if the trust is not there, your circle is not going to work. You have to have absolute trust in everybody you're working with. I know one time we went down to, and I can't remember the name of it, for the sweat lodges.
Oh, yeah.
Ursi.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was quite a group there. I don't even remember what the occasion was that we were all down there, but it was a very
Shannon had
diverse.
arranged it for us.
Yes, it was a very diverse group. And I was very much looking forward to the sweat. I had done one before, amazing insights during that. But there was a person there that I was not comfortable with sharing my spiritual work with. So I made the decision, it was my own decision, to not participate in that sweat because I was not comfortable being in that vulnerable situation with this other person in the sweat as well. And that's fine. You can make those choices, and
It's okay.
it's totally okay. Like I was not upset. I was not pissed off. There was no negative feelings for me around that. It was just a decision I made for me, for my own spiritual health and safety. And that's fine. And everybody else had a fantastic sweat, and that was wonderful. That
You
was
got
so
to
good.
join in the gathering after the
Afterwards,
sweat was
yes.
over and with
Yeah.
people, and still had an okay day. I
Yeah.
hope.
It was still a fabulous day and a fabulous experience. But that's what I mean by you have to really be able to trust the people you're working with. I know that sounds kind of heavy and deep right off the top.
No,
but
it's 100% true. But then the other thing, I think, rationally, when you think to yourself rationally, if we're talking about your working group, not a once, maybe every Sabbath or something, but your working group, who of us has a place to meet where 13 people can stand comfortably in ritual?
Yeah.
Like
That's not that
like,
easy.
I don't know. And we don't live in a place where we can be outside 12 months of the year.
Right.
But if you were meeting weekly, bi-weekly, once a month even, 13 people in somebody's living room.
And or getting a date organized for 13
For
people.
13
Like, look
people
how
and-
much trouble we have with 8.
Yeah.
Picking a date that works
Yeah.
for everybody. 13 people would be,
A logistical nightmare.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be.
Yeah.
As Margot was saying, if you're in you're starting your coven and it's a close working group, you have to be able to really trust those people. But you can be in more than one type of group.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You
number
can
of
be-
people are.
You can be, in different types of groups. Some of them are a little more casual, or you're working on other things, so don't think you can only be in one group.
And don't allow your group to limit you
Yes.
as well.
Oh,
There
back to
should,
gatekeeping.
yes, there shouldn't be any power over situation.
Yes.
It should be a power sharing situation, not any kind of power over.
Yeah, usually since after that traditional coven I started, which I did learn quite a lot of very interesting things in, I must say. Looking back, it was like, it was really good in many ways. There was many good things about it as well. But, the traditional, everyone takes a turn. Who's the duty witch, this time? And whoever they are, they might say, okay. And I find that whoever's the duty witch, well, maybe they have the right to say, okay, I'd like you to bring this or that or whatever. The other thing is, and I do talk about this in Witchcraft 101, is if you join a group and they say, and this is my opinion, if they say to you, you are not to talk about what goes on here, and you are not to say who is in the group, that is a reasonable request.
Yeah.
Because there's people who you don't know what their professional situation is. Their, who knows who. Don't talk about, such, Jane Smith, who I was at Coven Circle with, and it turns out that it's somebody's cousin who they don't know anything about, and their family might be, give them a hard time. If they do say, you don't talk about who's in this group, that is a reasonable request. That when you say don't let anyone have power over you,
No. That's a very different.
Yeah,
that is
very
looking,
reasonable request.
That's looking out for your group members.
Yes.
That's taking care of your group members.
And there will be, in the opposite sense, there will be individuals like myself and Karen who are like, we are pagan, we work for the government knows we're pagan because we fucking drive it down their throats. You can drop our name all you want.
Yeah.
Those people will tell you that. I have no issue telling anyone like. But you're right. The majority of people are still in the broom closet. And that's okay.
So that's a reason.
Yes, like the time that we had our photograph taken on the Commons for one of the rituals that we did there, solstice. And when the photographer was asking our names, and Maeve was like, you gave them your real name? I'm like, I work at Little Mysteries.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
What's that was they're going to report you
I
to
know.
your-
That was a long time ago. That was like 99 or something. That was a long. I have that clipped out article still at home.
I think everybody in the Grove is very open about. Now, at the same time, though, comparing a druid to a witch is not the same. It is.
No.
I definitely have a level
Especially
of
in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I definitely have a level of privilege that others do not.
and
I'm viewed as an academic.
And you know what? Druids are thought the idea of druid is less. The word druid is less threatening
Oh, much less
than
threatening.
witch.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. It's much less.
Little do they know we have a small army of squirrels.
well, and it's funny too. I know I've talked about this before. One time when I went to visit my mom in Winnipeg, and I always really couched my language around her as well, just because why
Respect.
Yes. So we had met up for coffee with a family friend, and they were asking me how I was doing and what I was doing, and so again I was like, well, I work in a women's spirituality bookstore. And she's like, oh, so you're a witch. So it's like I was not hiding anything.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, and it is, I guess I forget too, because my social circle is all pagan. For me, it's so normal.
Yeah.
That I forget out in the general public. Like even, when we go to the spiritual markets and those kinds of things, those are my experiences. So I forget when I go out in public that is not the norm.
Right. I do get that because you know what? I move between both worlds and you move between both worlds.
Yeah, I tend to.
And it can be different. And especially over COVID when you didn't go out very much. So you saved your outings for the things you wanted the very most. You know what I mean? And, which would be, I want to get together with my spiritual family. And then when you finally got out, you're Zooming and this and all these group things. Then when you finally got out back into the Muggle world, it was a little different.
Yeah.
Because, some of these other things, they just didn't have them during those lockdown months and they weren't planning it all out. But another thing is, don't be afraid to use some magic to find some like-minded people. Get yourself a spell together, to find those people. Make sure you say people who will be, kind and decent and who will, all for the greater good and my best well-being, and not in a manipulative way. Not like, I know that there's the Wolfsbane Coven over there, and I want into that coven, but they're not accepting members. I'm going to do a spell to get in that coven.
Yeah,
Don't do that. Yeah. Just to find some like-minded people. And the perfect example of all time was the very first day EPG in 1995. We didn't expect like 110 people. We expected 30 and all these people. And we had 9 people, all from Moncton, New Brunswick. I'm so happy to be here. I'm the only one in Moncton. I know I'm just all alone. And I'm seeing all these people. 9 different people from Moncton showed up. So
that's how it always works. People
always
always think they're alone, and they're not.
And again, festivals, amazing example.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to go alone. or to go with a friend, to bring a friend, and you don't know who you're going to meet. Look how many connections happened at our little 57 people festival last year.
Yeah.
Was so many people made connections and found people to
Our
work with.
Grove grew because of that festival.
Yes, yeah.
And that's how the Grove started, was APEG back in 2001. 4 of us realized, oh, we're all Druids. Why don't we do something together? And we just did.
Yeah, and don't be afraid. People say, oh, I can't go anywhere alone. They're pretty good. You're going to meet a lot of people. Everyone's pretty friendly.
Yeah.
99%, 0.999% of the time, it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
I think even more so now it is safe because you can join social media groups, Facebook, that sort of thing. And so you can build these relationships with people in the virtual before you ever actually commit to going to any events or joining a circle. You can see how they operate, how they act interpersonally, how they deal with things, and go from there.
So I know Essence, every month they put on a virtual, or there's a group here and a group there through Facebook or whatever. You see the advertisements that you can go virtually and, test the waters.
Yeah.
It is very different than just
I should
jumping
post
in
it more,
with
but
strangers.
ADF has a virtual ritual. I think it's every week. We have a virtual grove, the Fire Grove, and they do a virtual ritual every week.
Well, I had no idea, Brian.
I'll find the link and post it. But also, okay, I'm gonna say something, and please don't come after me. It's safer than it used to be due to the Me Too movement. People can speak out about harassment or issues. In the past, they felt they couldn't. A lot of people still feel they can't. Or a lot of people feel silenced. But it's not the same as it used to be. It's still a problem, of course. I'm not saying it's not a problem, sexual harassment of other people in the community. But it's significantly better than, say, it was in the 70s, 60s, or even 80s.
Oh, goodness,
Yeah.
yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Again, your neighborhood pagan store.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's another resource. Often they will put on classes of different type, whether it's a tarot class or like a Wicca 101 or introduction to paganism, whatever class. Go to classes, meet people. You may find somebody you want to go out for coffee with.
Yeah.
And
going to a festival or an online, group, or go into your local witchy store, pagan store, whatever it might be, there's someone who is known. It's like, it's not like, oh, I just found this online. I have no idea who it is, and I have no idea who these people are, and I've never heard anything about them. Could be anything. These are usually, it's a bit more vetted, shall we say.
Yeah.
So you know that you're walking most of the time into a safe situation. And if it doesn't turn out to be a good situation, well, then they are not invited back.
yes,
They are not. So it's a little more, it's been, filtered a bit more, which is really nice.
Yeah.
One of the groups that we've all been involved in, well, Maeve, Margot, and I, started out of I think it was like a 6 evening a week class. And the group worked so well together. So the structure was hierarchical in the sense that we had a paid mentor.
Yes.
But we worked so well together, we said, what can we learn next? So that's the other thing. You can have a spiritual group that's built around a ritual and a calendar of observances. You can have a spiritual group that is strictly about learning new things. And you can either have a mentor, or you can buy materials, or like you say, duty witch. One person could be responsible for each different thing. But we met as a group and met different people, and then we learned the next thing, and we stayed together for many, many years.
Many
Very
years,
few
yes.
people going in and out, but that group
Yes.
was very cohesive, probably over a decade.
well over a
Yes,
decade.
it was.
And that was one night every week.
It was the Thursday night group, and we were doing it because we wanted to learn. We're learning so much, not paying any attention basically to the outside world. And all of a sudden realized that people were talking about this Thursday night group that were so, woo woo. And we're like, you mean us?
That's right. We're so narrowly focused on what we were learning and everything. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And even if you say, well, you've read a book, and it's, maybe it's about developing your psychic powers or journey work, or, an intro to, paganism or witchcraft or whatever it is. and you have a friend or two, well, get the book and work through it together. We've done a lot of that. And you know what? And I will say, I mean, there's many, many books out there, but you can't go wrong with Christopher Penzak's Inner Temple of Witchcraft, which teaches you how to meditate and visualize and energy. And I mean, yes, there is the Temple of Witchcraft. But if you don't wish to get involved in the big thing, you want to try it, or get a couple of people and just start working through that. Or there's many other
lots of programs out there. ADF has Herf Keeper's Way, which is a free educational program online. You maintain a Herf. It's like a step below a grove. You're not expected to have a group, but your home is a Herf, and it's a safe space for other druids.
It's very interesting. Any topic at all. It could be, let's, every week do a new goddess or god and just get everyone do a little research. Maybe we get together, do a meditation, see how it goes. Maybe make a little ritual, something like that. There's so many
Learn
ways.
a divination skill every time you get
Learn
together.
a divination skill. It's work, but it's not as hard or as daunting as people seem to think it is.
No.
Because there's that very old-fashioned idea of being invited to a coven and being trained and initiations and all of that. There's nothing wrong with that. I do still have some of that old BTW in me. That's my biggest thing is don't be afraid to start it yourself.
Yeah.
You can be a total newbie. Figure it out.
So on the opposite spectrum, don't be afraid to kick people out who aren't working on it.
Oh, and we've done that before.
ADF
as well.
has a rule for groves. They are required to have bylaws. They're also required to have something in the bylaws to remove individuals who are not working in tandem.
Yes.
And
part
that
of the
is
rules.
that is a big issue. You have to be open to other individuals joining, but at the same time, you have to protect your own. So you don't want an individual who's going to be an energy vampire or problematic towards other members or problematic to the workings you're doing. The Grove is relatively selective of who we allow in. We have a probationary period where each individual who wishes to join the Grove properly has to be a member for a year and then perform a ritual, and then they can officially join the Grove. We currently have one member in that probationary period, but like the Grove, I just counted a moment ago, it's up to 31 people.
Good grief. Wow.
We've had to remove 2 people in our
History of 20 years?
Three people in our history of 20 years.
Yeah, and it happens sometimes. They're just not a good fit, or they're causing trouble. Or...
One individual was just into witchcraft and wasn't into druidry, and everything she wanted to do was witchcraft related, and it just didn't work with our vibe. Another individual was just, I hate to say, a Debbie Downer. Like, no matter what we did, nothing made them happy. And it sucked because we all liked them, but we just could not please this person no matter what we did. And then the final person was a bit of a control freak, and they wanted things a very particular way, and that was just not our vibe. So, yeah.
Well, now I'm going to ask about the Grove just quickly. Is every time the same format, or do you have like the duty druid and they can shake it up a little
so
bit?
We have the senior druid who's in charge of the Grove in total. That's Lily at the moment. And then each ritual has a lead. So Mark just led the most recent ritual. Jenny is doing Summer Solstice. Michael is doing Lanasa.
So there's room for, let's do this, let's do this. And,
yes.
Lots of room
we've
for
talked about
variety.
this before. In our rituals, we have the core order of ritual. So all of our rituals usually follow that. But each ritual lead has their own spin or take on it.
Okay, yeah. The other thing is, when you're starting a group, and I have experience with this, you can have a group. You're all pagans, but you might not all be dedicated or whatever to the same god or goddess.
Oh, yeah,
You could
definitely.
be coming from different backgrounds. Somebody just, for example, say you have someone who's more of a continental European flair. Somebody might be Irish flair. Somebody might be Egyptian flair.
I don't
Norse.
think I've ever been in a group where everybody was on the same path.
No,
That-
no. I think that would be
That's when you get into more traditional styles.
Yeah.
This is the way we do it. Like it can be done different every month, but it's always a sharing, it's always a learning, it's always a spiritual experience.
And that's what makes it so interesting.
Yes.
Is working with people who can bring a different view to what you're doing and what you're experiencing. You don't want a bunch of robot copies of everybody. You need individual thought, individual spirit, because that's when you need to depend on your grove or on your circle and are looking for support in some way to know who is capable of giving you the support at that time that you need it, kind
No,
of
at the
thing.
same time, no. It's not necessarily a bad thing if you do wish to start a circle or a temple dedicated to one god or goddess.
Oh no, you can do that too,
Yeah.
certainly. But and oftentimes, say pretend you're relatively new to it, or you've only worked alone, and if you wish to, get with a couple friends, and we want to run our circle this way, and maybe you can certainly have that because that ceremonial, I don't know what's the word, ceremony magic sort of associations. If you burn the same type of incense, the smell does this. It's that magical association. You can be devoted, to Medusa if you like, or whatever the case might be. You can do, there's so many options. Don't limit yourself to thinking you can't because you don't have exactly this.
Yeah, the most of the grove is Northern European. So a form of Celtic, Welsh, Irish, something along those lines. But in the ADF, you can worship any pantheon of gods or goddesses you want. We have a lot of Greek practitioners. We have a lot of Roman practitioners. We have a lot of Egyptian practitioners. And that's perfectly fine and acceptable. Just, we're in Nova Scotia, so we're all usually have that
Northwestern European
exactly, yeah.
deal
So that's all. That's what we're into. But we've tried to do rituals for other gods and goddesses. It's just not our cup of tea.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But if someone else was to come in and do that for us, we'd all appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, I'll go to anyone's ritual.
Yeah.
I'll go. Oh, look, we're going to do a ritual. I'm going.
Yeah.
This looks like fun. Now, if you go into some sort of, there's a group and you're so desperate to be in a group, but there's someone or more than one someone who you don't feel comfortable with, or you flat out don't like, but you're really desperate to be in a group. I don't think I could go somewhere where I wasn't comfortable if it was going to be a tight working group with people I didn't like.
No, of course.
You can't. Now, oftentimes you might get to a public ritual, where there's 50 people. No, I'm not crazy about that person, but there's 50 people and we're outdoors and I just won't stand near them.
Yeah.
Unless you're really, really, like you didn't with the sweat. You just weren't prepared
Well, that's
to share.
because that was a very close,
personal.
intimate. Yeah.
Well, there's also a balance between that. Like, if you go to an open public event and there's someone you don't like, sometimes that's just on you. You just don't like them.
And maybe somebody doesn't like you.
That happens often.
Just because you don't like the individual doesn't necessarily make them a bad person.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of bad people out there.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about. I'm just saying sometimes when you go into those situations and that's the first thing you view, you should look internally a little bit.
That's an opportunity for growth sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But those are often big, large, open ones are often of a celebratory nature, and you're not vulnerable. You're in a different kind of relationship.
One of the great things about paganism, we don't have fucking forgiveness. If people screw you over, fuck them.
Yeah.
You don't have to forgive them.
You don't have to forgive them.
I don't explain
At
that
the same
at
time,
times.
understand that sometimes it's internal. It's in you.
Now, don't go hex them or anything.
Yeah.
Don't be doing that. Just, you don't gotta like them. That's enough.
Maybe just a little minor curse. Maybe shoe
just-
ties, shoelaces always on top.
Yeah.
My favorite one is still, may you never have any bag French fries.
Yeah.
Because those are my favorites.
We really need to have Karen on. She has hundreds of them. She has spent a lot of time coming up with those. I should just get her to read a bunch. We'll have them at the end of an episode someday. Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. And we hope that you found that interesting. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact us through
On Instagram or Facebook.
I keep forgetting to say Instagram.
We reply quite quickly. I message other podcasts and never hear anything. I reply to everybody. Just so you know, it's also always me.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about maybe an idea in the future would be answering questions about previous podcasts. If you had a question, you had any question about anything we said tonight, certainly let us know.
We have a few questions. We're gonna finally do our listener question episode.
Well, there you go.
We
If you
need
have-
more questions, but we've got a few down.
Send in your questions. We're always happy to talk about
Well,
pretty much
yeah,
anything.
some of them we take away and they're a whole episode.
Oh,
Some of
yes.
these questions
Yes.
have been.
Yeah, that's what the majority of the listener episodes we've done have been that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, look, again, thank you very much.
Hello, beloved listeners and patrons of Three Witches and a Druid podcast. We would like to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering support of our podcast. With your encouragement, we have been able to explore and celebrate the rich and diverse world of paganism and spirituality. We feel blessed to have had the opportunity to share our knowledge and experiences with you. As we continue to grow and evolve, we invite you to join us on this journey and become a Patreon member of our podcast. Your contribution will help us to continue creating quality content and provide you with more exciting episodes filled with wisdom, insights, and a little enchantment. By becoming a Patreon member, you will not only support our mission, but you will also have access to exclusive content, behind the scenes goodies, discounts, and much, much more. Together, we can create a thriving and supportive community. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being a part of our Three Witches and a Druid family.
Until next time, everybody, merry meet
Merry part.
and merry meet again.
Blessed be.
This has been Three Witches and a Druid podcast. Thanks for listening.